Hey, what's up everybody? Brian here at Acne Be Gone. So yesterday I made the fatal and really bad mistake of watching a food documentary. Brand new food documentary. It's actually really good. It's called What the Health. And as I'm watching this, all I can think of is, why am I watching this video? You know, it just kind of reopened my eyes to all the horrors in the food industry. And it reminded me of a time when I actually went vegan due to the fact that I had such bad acne at the time. I was just trying to figure out whether or not being a vegan or whether or not eating animal products such as meat, eggs, milk, cheese, dairy products, things of that nature, whether or not they cause acne or not. Anyways, all this coming right up. All right, so let me take you guys back about 8 years when I was in my 4th year of college. And at the time, I was doing a lot of research. I was trying to figure out what it was that was causing my acne. I had acne for the majority of my life, and I didn't know what it was that was making me break out all the time. It was like I look around, everyone's fine. I look at myself, and it's just like busted. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to figure out, I'm like, what is it that's making me break out so much? So one of the things that I realized or learned was that hormone fluctuations is a really big contributor to acne, to breaking out. So, as I'm doing research at their time, there was another really good documentary out floating around the internet, and it was called Food Inc. And, that was another one where it just kind of opens your eyes and you just see all the terrible things that happen with how it is that our food is produced. It's mass produced. The way chickens and cows and pigs and sheep and all these different animals that we consume are slaughtered. And how is it that those things affect my skin or anybody else's skin for that matter? And at the time I'm thinking, all right, if these animals are being processed in a really messed up way, then, I'm consuming that, then that's going to kind of like wreak havoc inside of me. So I did some research and I discovered that, for instance, milk, all right, so dairy. Milk, or where milk comes from, these cows, they're injected with bovine growth hormone, right? And the cows, they have this naturally. This is like a naturally occurring hormone inside the cows, but what farmers do is that they give them this hormone in order for them to produce more milk. Now, from a farmer's perspective, he's thinking, I need to get more money, I need to get this cow producing more milk, let me just do something to ramp up production, and that's fair.
Yeah, because you can't knock the hustle.
But when this hormone is getting into your system and it starts messing with your hormones, that's when I think it's like the line starts to get crossed a little bit. And this is where I think proper education is very important. So some of the other things that I learned at the time was that, these cows, they're like very susceptible to mastitis, where these cows, they get inflammation of the mammary gland. They develop these like pus balls inside of them. Sometimes the milk comes out with pus through the, what are those things called? The udders? The udders, right? It's not the uterus. That's totally wrong. But anyways, pus comes out through this milk, and I'm thinking, oh man, if I'm even intaking any little bit of this like so-called pus and it's coming out on my face, like how disgusting is that? So immediately I stopped drinking milk. And I reflected on all the milk that I had drank at the time. And anybody who's had school lunch growing up knows that you don't just eat your school lunch. You're very nutritious and very well prepared American school lunch. You also down that with a carton of milk, or probably like a really, high fructose corn syrup or high sugar and sugar content type of juice, the ones that come in those little packets. So I remember I would always down all my school lunches with milk. I have chocolate milk. I just open that little carton at the end of every single meal that I ate in school. Now, obviously, like as I was saying earlier, school lunch is not necessarily as nutritious as most would like to think. I was being very sarcastic at the time, but I would down all my school lunches with milk, and I realized, I'm like, man, I drank milk for such a long period of time. I mean, I wouldn't even drink water. I would just down everything that I had at school with milk. And obviously, this had to have played some kind of part in my acne. I developed acne when I was in elementary school. I was about 2nd grade. I got really bad acne all over my forehead in 4th grade. By 5th grade, it was starting to come into my cheeks. Middle school is just, there's nothing you could do about it. High school, same thing. So by college, I'm like, I got to figure this whole thing out. So that was one thing I realized. Another thing I realized last night, along with 8 years ago when I watched Food Inc., was that, cows are injected with hormones in order to beef them up, So once again, from the farmer's perspective, how can I get this cow to make more meat so I can make more money? Because he's trying to feed his family as well. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I can't really knock him.
Yeah, because you can't knock the hustle.
It's my responsibility to know what it is that I'm ingesting. So I'm going to go ahead and take responsibility for that. And I really think a lot of people should as well. But at the same time, when you don't know these things, it's very easy to want to be like, F you, farmer. You know what I mean? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you producing this food that I'm eating that's messing with my hormones? So at that time, once I realized all these things, I'm like, all right, I can't eat meat. I can't have any kind of animal products. I'm totally giving up all that type of stuff. And I'm just going to go vegan. And let me tell you, at the time, I wasn't as well informed. I was a little bit like short-sighted and narrow-minded. So my vegan experience wasn't exactly the most, awesome one, if you will. It was actually very, very difficult. I found it very, very challenging to try to mix things up. For a whole year, I went vegan, and that means, Christmas, Thanksgiving, birthdays, countless family dinners where, Mama Dukes would make all these amazing home-cooked meals, and everyone's eating and enjoying and pouring gravy on their chicken or turkey or whatever it is. And I'm over here sitting in a corner with like a plate of brown rice and like lentils or like chickpeas or something like that. Super bland. And I was just like, but at the time I was so angry. I was so angry at the fact that I had consumed all this food that's kind of what fueled me to, just always eat whatever I wanted to eat in terms of like vegetables, obviously, because hey, I couldn't have, meat. So I just kind of like forced myself through that whole process. Now at the time I thought, okay, if I go vegan, it's going to clear up my skin, because all these hormones that these animals are being injected with and grown with and processed with, all these hormones are getting into my system. So now that's messing with my system. So if I don't eat those, my system's going to be just fine. And that wasn't necessarily the case either. I still had a little bit of more growing to do, a little bit more learning to do on the subject matter. And, at the time, I didn't realize that white rice and foods in really high sugar content also, spiked my insulin levels, which messed with my hormones, which, made my sebaceous glands produce more oil, causing them more of a probability to clog the pore and then end up breaking out in like a huge zit. So, at the time, I was thinking, all right, my face is going to clear up and I'll be fine. You know what I mean? But that didn't necessarily happen. So after about a year or so, I remember I moved back home from college. It was like 3 weeks into, being back at mom's house, and all that was being cooked was like chicken and lamb chops and steak and hamburgers. And, after about 3 weeks, I kind of just caved. I caved. I started eating all this food again. I kind of just like turned a blind eye to all the quote unquote horrors of, the food industry. So last night when I'm watching this documentary, I was just kind of like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Because once you see things, it's really difficult to turn away from them. So that happened last night. But back to my original question of, can you clear your acne if you go vegan? And the question is the answer to the question is yes and no. The reason I say yes is because, yes, if you go vegan, you're going to notice that a lot of these foods that you're eating, if you have a huge or a predominantly plant-based diet, you're going to notice that a lot of these things don't really mess with your hormones. A lot of these foods are actually going to enrich your skin. They're going to give you extra nutrients. They're going to protect you against free radicals. They're going to give you a bunch of antioxidants that are going to be really, really good for you internally. And if your insides or the internal health of your body is very, very good, then you will see it, reflected through your skin. But the reason I say no as well is because of my story. I wasn't doing the best practices to ensure that I wasn't going to break out. So, for instance, yes, I was vegan. Yes, I ate like nuts and vegetables and beans and things of that nature. But at the same time, like I would just down like 2 mangoes. And that's like a really high sugar intake. Not saying that the mangoes are bad, but the mangoes in themselves, like just mangoes inside my stomach, yeah, my body's like, all right, we got a bunch of sugar here. We need to release some insulin in order to break this down. And that insulin spike is ultimately what made me break out so much. On top of that, I remember at the time having a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, a lot of peanut butter and honey sandwiches. And anybody who likes to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches knows that you put a little bit more jelly or a little bit more honey than peanut butter. You want it to be kind of like, a little juicy, real tasty. You don't want it to be just bland peanut butter either. So I was doing that, and I wasn't realizing that high sugar intake from the jelly was making me break out. I actually gave up peanuts too after a while because I was like, oh no, like peanuts are not giving me acne. I did a lot of trial and error with food that I was consuming at the time. So there you have it. Can you clear up your skin by being a vegan? Absolutely. Absolutely. Vegan diets or high plant-based diets are very good for your skin. They enrich your skin with lots of nutrients. They provide you with lots of antioxidants. They protect you from free radicals. They really, really do a lot to reduce inflammation inside of your skin as well, or not just inside your skin, but inside your body, which translates to clear and beautiful skin. So think of your skin as a mirror image of what's going on the inside. Now, do you have to be vegan to clear your skin? No, not necessarily, because I haven't been vegan for about 7 years now, and I've finally learned how to manage my skin effectively. At the time, my main purpose or my main motivation for not eating meat was to clear my skin. It wasn't necessarily for the horrors in the animal industry, or the food industry. Now that I have clear skin and I saw that freaking documentary last night, what am I going to do? I have like lettuce and carrots over there on the countertop waiting for me in just a moment. But either way, regardless as to whether you're vegan or not vegan, be sure that you're drinking water at the end of every meal. You want to make sure that you're constantly hydrating yourself. Make sure that you're only washing your face one time throughout the day. You don't want to overwash, so one time at night is really good. Start off with some warm water and then transition into cool water and then eventually into cold water. This is really good for your skin. You're going to see that your skin is going to glow a lot more, and you're going to notice that your skin is not going to be as oily as well. Lastly, you also want to make sure that you exercise on a regular basis. This is going to be really good for your metabolism. This is going to be really good to cleanse your skin internally. It's going to get the circulation going. It's going to get nutrients taken to those skin cells, and it's ultimately going to take out waste from those skin cells as well. So there you guys have it. To be a vegan or not to be a vegan, it really all depends on what it is that you want. What are your preferences? Where are your values? Just make sure that you're also doing the best practices. One thing that I also forgot to mention was stay away from white rice. It is the antichrist when it comes to acne. Anyways, guys, this is Brian here at Acne Be Gone. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Acne Be Gone. Also, if you want daily tips, blog posts, and weekly videos, go on my Facebook page and hit the like button. It's Acne Be Gone. And lastly, if you haven't checked out my website, theabgoutlet.com, it's a one-stop shop for all your acne fighting needs. I'll talk to you guys soon. Later.